Welcome to the Saturday Night Live Afterparty. This week, we'll be discussing Season 47, Episode 3 of SNL with host Rami Malek and musical guest Young Thug. I'm Catherine Coleman, and I am joined this week by Steve Finn, as well as New York-based writer Madeline Baldanzi. You can connect with Madeline on Twitter at Madeline Baldanzi, and you can find us at snlpodcast.com. All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight?
All smiles over here. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Great. Excited to be here.
Yes,
Woo-hoo.
We are
Welcome,
thrilled
Madeline.
to have you, Madeline. We have so much to talk about tonight. A first-time host, a 007 cameo, a Squid Game parody. This episode just had so much going on, and we're fully ready to break it down. But first, I want to introduce Madeline to the audience. Welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Yeah. So Madeline was actually my teacher at UCB. She taught me Sketch 101, Sketch 301, as well as this like extra class I took called Sketch Sprint. So she taught me everything I know about sketch comedy, so I'm pretty redundant tonight. But I'm really excited to hear all of Madeline's brilliant thoughts on this episode. And it's going to be really fun. I'm very interested to see how our takes differ, considering, you know, we have a similar basis of knowledge, right? But before we get into it, Madeline, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about, maybe some of your favorite sketches or favorite eras of SNL and, how you feel about the show.
I've been watching SNL since I was 13, nonstop, seen every episode since then. And in my mind, I think of it in three different eras. The first one is kind of Amy Poehler-ish, Tina Fey. When I think about that, I just love Maya Rudolph so much. Wake Up Wakefield was my fave. And then I kind of think of a little bit middle ground. And to me, that's the Bill Hader era. Mm-hmm. And of course, I love that puppet class sketch. That sketch is just so textbook and yet still so funny and surprising. And then the newer era, which almost feels like an old era now, I just think is completely typified by Aidy and Kate. And anytime Aidy and Kate get together, those are my faves. Dyke and Fats. I love that alien abduction sketch. Anything with those gals, that's my fave.
Yeah, you and I have that in common.
You had me at Dyke and Fats. Oh, man.
I feel like we watched that puppet sketch in one of your classes.
I don't think I liked that sketch as much when I saw it live as I did when I started teaching, because it's hard to find by the book sketches that are still very funny and surprising. And I think that sketch fulfills both of those things really well.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, those are all great references. So now the audience knows your taste. They know what you're bringing. Let's get into it. Are y'all ready?
Let's do it.
All right. For the cold open, the Las Vegas Raiders are moving through head coaches quickly during this press conference. Madeline, how'd you feel about the cold open?
At first, I was really excited. I thought the NFL, okay, that's a good target, right? We can make fun of them in a good political way. And I thought it was a mostly successful open. I was feeling a little bit distracted from the fact of, is them moving through coaches fast enough the game or not the game of this sketch? But I think they did a good job hitting that beat enough times without it getting boring. My biggest nit to pick with this cold open was the politics of it. I really enjoyed it when they were sort of nailing the NFL for everything that they've done that I don't like that they're doing. But then sometimes they were merely representing the things that were wrong instead of making fun of them. And I actually think that can be okay, but they kept flipping back and forth. A more specific example is I loved that Heidi Gardner joke so much when her character was unnamed. In my head, I thought, are they really not going to name the cheerleader character? And then boom, she came right in with the joke about it. I thought that was brilliant and so well executed on Heidi's part. But then she turned right around and accepted the joke changed, and she accepted the fact that the sexism was just supposed to be fun. So that felt like a like a flip in the target to me. It felt like we were punching up and then suddenly we're punching down. So I think if they could have just the writers could have cleaned this up and punched up the whole time, it would have been a more successful cold open for me. Pretty good.
Hmm.
Fair enough. Lot to consider there. Good. That's a great point that I did not think about. My main critique on it is it's just really long. Um, I am a little biased because I don't follow the NFL. I'm from Alabama. We do college football there. I'm not familiar with the news story, right? So obviously, like as soon as it started, I was excited that it wasn't like a political cold open, and as far as I mean, it was topical and it addressed some politics, but it wasn't quote unquote political. So I was excited about that. I always think that's a win, but not knowing the story, it was already I wasn't going to love it, right? It wasn't really for me. But if I look at it somewhat objectively, I'm just like, we don't need all of these people. And like, I feel like when you're writing a sketch that's this kind of format, it's one of those where you come to the table with like a 6-page sketch, and then like the 3 beats that got the least amount of laughs you cut, and then you have a really nice tight 4 pages, And I just feel like we could have done without a few of these. Heidi would be the easiest one to cut, but she was also my favorite one, so I don't know, that it's tricky to do that sometimes. But yeah, I mean that's my big take. That and of course James Austin Johnson just continues to shine. That guy's having the best months of anybody in the world, I think. But yeah, not my favorite, but it wasn't for me, so that's all right. Steve, where'd you land?
Uh, Everybody's making good points, and yeah, I felt there was some way to tighten the focus in this. I think Madeline made some good points on how to do that, but overall, I just liked uh, this opportunity. I think it was a good opportunity to take a comedic angle, but also say something that's worth saying. But I myself am not a sports fan either. But ever since they've had Alex on the show and now James Austin Johnson, who are obvious big sports fans, they bring something of their own sensibilities that I don't have, but they can make really hilarious caricatures out of some of these public figures in sports. And while I'm not too aware of them myself, I like their funny spins on them. I can tell that they know the game and the politics of sports well. So I'm happy for the sports fans who are SNL watchers because they're probably happy with this era
Mhm.
and what they're
That
doing.
huge amount of crossover.
Yep, something we haven't had since Seth Meyers, and I think the sports fans have been missing that.
I
I
will
know.
say I had no idea who the person Alex Moffat was impersonating was, but that wig was very funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not like I've seen pictures of that man and I've read about him, but like I don't know who he is. The haircut was spot on though. You should Google it because it's actually worse in real life.
oh god,
Oh no.
I
uh,
like the image that the description conjured up. I don't want to mess with that at all.
fair enough. Fair enough. Well, a decent cold open. We all got something from it. Let's keep going. For the monologue, Rami Malek, or was it his twin, discusses his love of villains. Steve, was the monologue a win?
Yeah, I'm gonna say some things about Rami's first go as hosting that won't be as flattering, I don't think. Uh, but having said that, I think this is where Rami really shone, and might have been early in the show, but the monologue is a big deal, and most eyes before people start falling asleep are on this time of night. So, for Rami to do his best work here, I think it's good for him, right? He seemed very relaxed. It seemed like he worked the hardest on getting this monologue right, more so than anything. I think this is where his nerves were getting shot the most. So he kind of over prepared, and you see it like he's almost making it look easy at this point with his relaxed demeanor and his casual delivery. He did a really good job of playing a competent comedian, like an actor portraying that role. I think he got into it, and I don't think anybody like Madeline. I don't think you and your class would teach anyone to approach a monologue quite like this. This is very Rami. Uh, so yeah, I think it was really good for that reason. It was, just awkward, but in a charming way.
Yeah, I thought this was a great monologue. I thought Rami had really good delivery. It was dry, it was a little slow paced, but he I was into it. Like he was selling the jokes really well. I thought he nailed it. But now that you've said that, Steve, about him portraying a comedian, that is very accurate.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic point. Um,
Like he used his talents as an actor to craft the
mhm.
character that is a semi
The
decent comedian, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that is really interesting, and that does feel very true. But it was written really well, and I will call out Mike DeCenzo wrote this. He also wrote or helped write the Kim Kardashian one last week, which I also thought was amazing. So maybe he's going to be our go-to monologue guy because he's hitting them out of the park so far. Madeline, do you agree? Did you enjoy this?
I did. I enjoyed this monologue from a purely writing point of view. I was really pleased for the first two thirds of it. I thought, we've got a topic and we're sticking to it. It's villains. I thought sticking to one topic let it get into more specificity, which was really fun. I liked that run of turning around the perspective of different villains. Jaws, hungry. That's great. What a simple, fun, specific joke. I wasn't quite as thrilled when we turned away from that. It was going so well. I wanted it to delve a little deeper and get a little weirder. But I'll take a LA traffic joke from Rami Malek. Sure, that's fun. Why not? Rami specifically, what a sweetheart. I really enjoyed his performance here. I thought he seemed extremely nerve-sighted, which is nervous and excited, and it only enhanced how sweet and earnest he seemed to me.
Okay, well, monologue is a big win. Let's get into our sketch fair. Daddy's got it at this school assembly on bugs. And I loved this one. At first, when I realized this whole thing is going to be based on a pun, I got a little nervous and I thought it would wear out its welcome pretty quickly. But then it didn't. They just found for me, I thought they found such fun places to go with it. Like when he told the principal to call me daddy, but then he told Heidi, I don't want that from you. And then the credit card beat was great. I found it very consistently delightful and it surprised me. And I was Bowen can sell anything. So I was having a great time. Madeline, was it a win for you?
It was a win for me. It was an awfully long walk to just letting Bowen be Bowen, I think. I don't
True.
know that they had to be children necessarily, but once we got the justification about the dads, I was fully bought into it being children. I think it just went a little bit too long without reminding me that part of the joke is that Bowen is a kid that is a little bit strange and very delightful. But really, anything to just get to Bowen being Bowen was super fun. I really want to shout out whoever created that spider costume. The butt of it wiggling really made me laugh out loud. And
Mhm.
also, what happened when the arm fell off? That was also
Yeah.
very funny.
Top right arm,
Mhm.
rest in peace.
Yeah, that was funny, and that gave, Keenan the giggles a little bit, which he
Yeah,
then held on to all night long, and I loved.
apparently.
Ste Steve, where'd you land on this?
I liked it. And yeah, maybe we could have focused more on the Bowen being Bowen, like Madeline was saying. But for what they did, I liked how they approached the other characters. It must be a challenge to get in there and write a sketch where one character's taking the main uh, comedic focal point, and you have a lot of other straight characters playing off that. It helps to get a few laughs from making them a little dorky and not totally just like I'm a normal person reacting to you, but having them another believable character in that world they've created that has a comedic tinge to it. I think that helps with uh, the ricocheting of the wackiness back and forth. But
Mhm.
obviously, Bowen is the star here, and I think he popped as he usually does. So I'm always gonna be game for a Bowen led sketch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you might as well not ask me.
I am glad, Madeline, that you sort of mentioned this framing device of having them children, because the full idea, is what if Daddy Longlegs was a daddy? And there's a million directions you could go there, right? And never in a million years would I have sat down and been like, "Oh, kids bug show." So it is a very interesting choice that ended up working.
Yep.
A kids' bug show is not a thing, right?
Not that I know of.
I'm sure at least one in the world has been done.
I mean, I used to be a teacher. We never did specifically a bug show, so
I liked it though.
yeah, it worked.
I stopped remembering they were kids, but then they brought me back. You're exactly right, Steve, with the other weird children. So it really worked.
Yeah. All right. Well, big win on the bug sketch. Let's keep going. These country singers are broke, and it's a damn shame. So they gotta play a Squid Game. So who here has seen Squid Game?
Oh, I knew that was going to be your first question.
Well, it's important to give context to the audience, Steve. I've watched 3 episodes, so I'm the reigning champ. Um, so I can't vouch for how accurate it was, but it did seem a little spoiler heavy. And so I know I'm like a week behind, but it still felt a little soon. So I am personally a little bit annoyed, but that's a me problem. Uh, but Steve, do you have any sort of objective takes having not seen Squid Game?
Not only have I not seen Squid Game, but I don't know about this moist fella.
Big wet.
Oh, he's all the way wet. Okay,
He's all the way wet.
and large.
Mhm.
I never heard of him, but yeah, I retroactively figured out that this was a sample of his song.
Mhm.
But anyway, it was a catchy tune.
Was.
And 3 episodes in, I know how huge Squid Game is. My aunt was over the other day. She visited me. She's 82 years old. She's like, "Have you been watching the Squid Game?" I'm like, "You." So if my 82-year-old aunt is beating me to it, I should probably pick it up. Uh,
It's good. I'll
yeah,
say that. It's good.
like I saw a little clip. Like I know the premise. I think I know
Mhm.
just enough to to get what they're doing here. Like
Mhm.
I know that it's like kind of like a Hunger Games situation.
Right.
Yeah, I like the idea that the down on his luck loner cowboy guy, an archetype we've seen in so much country pop music. Uh, you know, taking that, which a lot of people relate to as a representation of urban poverty. That would be someone that would probably consider Squid Game or something like it. It's in that vein of the same social commentary that Squid Game seems to be making. Again, I haven't seen it, so I can't say.
Steve, I'm so glad you said all of that because I haven't seen Squid Game. My only interaction with Squid Game is meeting a new class of students 2 weeks ago, asking them what they were watching. Every single one of them said Squid Game, then gasped when I said I hadn't heard of it. I don't know how soon you have to be on the internet now to hear of things. I guess I sound like my dad now. I don't know. But I think I'm going to not watch it on principle now. So I had no idea what was happening in this sketch. I did understand that it was a Hunger Games esque parasite kind of show, but I didn't exactly identify the song as a country song. So I couldn't quite figure out what the mapping game was or why they chose this song. But if it really was a country song, then I totally understand now. It makes sense for exactly the reasons you said. And if that's basically the game of it, I only wish there were slightly more country tropes in it or something, but I don't really have a leg to stand on here because I just don't know the references.
I don't know. I guess I'm not I remain unconvinced that a country song is the best option for a Squid Game parody. I think there are I feel like that held it back from doing anything more than just summarizing the show. unless they wanted to dive more into the country tropes and like map those on, which they did.
That's what it felt like to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah,
just a recap in a funny way.
yes, that's exactly what it was. Which, I mean, it wasn't unfunny, but I just feel like that it's a show that's so crazy and so talked about and so hyped up. There's just so much you could do with it.
Yeah.
And for someone who's been, even though I just started it, waiting for the Squid Game sketch for the past 2 weeks, I was just left a little wanting because I just didn't think this, at least for me, was the best way to tackle it. But that said, huge props to set and costume design because they absolutely nailed it. Like, oh my god, this looked exactly like the show. That was amazing. So I'll say that it was fine, but it wasn't what I wanted from my Squid Game parody. So I was a little disappointed with it.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if they got help from the actual production of the show to get that mise en scène so accurate.
I think some of the shots they were using, I think they did just pull from the show. Like of the weird robot girl, I think those were just taken directly from the show.
Yeah. I'd like to see behind the scenes of this one.
Maybe they'll give us that because they know we're itching for Squid Game content. So give us the behind the scenes, guys.
We're jigging for squid.
All right, so a little more head scratchy there than the others. Let's get into our next one. The top 2 candidates to play Prince in this upcoming bioflick are none other than Rami Malek and Kenan Thompson. And a cameo from Daniel Craig. Madeline, you're shaking your head. Hit me with the thoughts.
I was so excited when this sketch began. I couldn't contain myself. I thought, here we go. It's going to be Kenan and Rami playing Prince. They're going to get to do wild things. And then they just did the same thing over and over for the first full minute and a half of the sketch. The most boring, dull thing they could do. And I appreciated it. It went on a little too long to just be one beat. It took up too much time. You can't give me Kenan and Rami as Prince and then not let them do Prince stuff. So I started really excited. I kind of took a dip, but then I have to say it was so funny to me when they named them just Kenan and Rami in the sketch that I was completely delighted by that. And just telling Kenan, you're black, so you get the sketch was very funny, or you get the role was very, very funny to me. I think that having big time celebrities in really dumb costumes and making them do embarrassing things is great. But I was still just so ready for more Kenan and Rami doing Prince stuff that I was a little bummed out when Daniel Craig showed up. And he was a little bit awkward. But I think overall, there was enough silliness here that it was still a win for me.
Yeah. Steve, do you agree?
Yes, I agree. But I kind of get it. I could see how much fun it would be writing all of those little backstories as to what motivates those Prince-esque movements. Like you could just see like them in their office, just like browsing through hours of Prince footage and be like, okay, so why is he making that movement? And then they just probably ran with it, took a little too much Adderall and wrote way too many examples, and just wanted to not cut too many darlings. Uh, Whatever. I like that goofiness, and yeah, maybe that was not the true genius of the sketch. I mean, they had some fun bringing in the cameos and the fact that uh, Mr. James Bond, Daniel Craig, that's his name. The fact that he came in dressed as like a literal prince, those little things like that. It was consistently silly and aimed low and made those shots.
Yeah, I agree with you, Madeline, too, that there's just not a lot here, but it was fun. So there's no reason for them doing that 20 times to be funny, but was it funny? Yes. Like, every time they did a new one, I was laughing, I was having fun with it. So, it's maybe not the best example of brilliant writing, but the performances really sold it, right? And it was fun, and they trusted that it was going to be fun, and they did it, and I respect that a lot. I think, they're gonna bring in a cameo. Cameos are crowd pleasers. I get it. And I think it's fun to bring Daniel Craig in here. They just I don't know if it needed to be tightened up in the writing or if he was just off. I'm not really sure there, but something about that was just a little awkward and made it feel a little too long.
I really liked the first Jordan Peele horror movie joke.
Mhm.
I thought that was really funny. And then Daniel Craig was supposed to call it back, but I couldn't tell if it wasn't a funny callback because it wasn't a strong enough joke or if it got a little bungled. But I do think maybe something had gone wrong there or something. There was something a little bit off at the end.
If I were to put on my detective deer stalker,
Please
uh,
do.
I would guess that Daniel Craig was not able to make the rehearsal for this sketch.
Probably.
He seemed to be going in, not big wet, but a little dry. If we want to do callbacks,
Oh,
But
this
props
is
to
why
him
we
for
love
putting
you.
on that outfit. So
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it something that was fun enough and we enjoyed. Up next, this game show asks a celebrity panel middle school trivia questions. Madeline, how'd you feel about this one?
This was fine. This was a way to get celebrity impressions in. They weren't my favorite celebrity impressions. I think we've seen a lot of them before. I don't know actually if I've seen a ton of her doing Kristen Wiig, Melissa doing Kristen Wiig on the show, but I've seen it on the internet so many times. It kind
Uh-huh.
of it took the shine off of that for me, though it is incredible. I've seen Chris Redd do Lil Wayne so many times, loved Bowen as George Takei, but this was fine. I think I'm the only one that doesn't love the new guy. I didn't think that Adam Driver was a great take. I know I'm making enemies here. I yeah, I didn't love that Adam Driver. Yeah, this was all fine. I liked Bert Simpson. I did love imagining Rami and Pete Davidson in the dressing room trying to imitate each other before the show. I kind of wish I
Mhm.
got to see that instead of them actually doing it. But this one was just a celebrity impression bucket for me. It was fine.
Yeah, I love James Austin Johnson, but this was not his best impression. I was not sold on the Adam Driver impression. I don't know, it just wasn't there for me. It didn't feel the beard was weird, and but then also just the voice wasn't quite deep enough. And then I'm not every time Adam Driver's been on the show, he seems really fun. So like the take on his personality also felt a little off to me.
Exactly.
Yeah. But outside of that, I mean, all of these impressions were great. I really loved Mikey's John Oliver. I loved Chloe's Jennifer Coolidge. And obviously, Melissa's Kristen Wiig is great. It was really amusing to see Pete and Rami trade places. We went into the episode thinking that would probably happen at some point because we know they sort of look alike. We know Pete's played Rami in a Mr. Robot parody before, so we anticipate something of this nature, right? Um, and this was a fun enough way to do it. I think again, my big thing is this just needed cuts. It was 7 minutes long. That's long. um, so like I think they could have had a really great 4 minute sketch out of this that just it hit those impressions once and then we played with Pete and Rami and then we were out, right? But this there was just a lot of stuff going on that it sort of got distracted from the reason we were here, which was to see Pete and Rami. So it was fun, but a little more middle of the road for me for that reason. Steve, where'd you land on this one?
I landed on just appreciating the couple of things I liked about this while, tipping my cap to the rest of it. We covered it. Madeline specifically covered it with some of these we've seen before. We've seen Little Wayne. Uh But I've also seen Melissa's Kristen Wiig, and I'm glad to see it done on the show now. No, I've seen her do it on like Seth Meyers, and whenever she does it, what I love about it is that people who have worked with Kristen, their reaction to it is like, uh, it's not even like they're laughing; they're just kind of freaked out by it because it's that
Mhm.
good. And you see it in Keenan's reaction. I know we're used to saying Keenan reacts, but this seemed more of a genuine reaction from Keenan than one of his famous quips.
Mhm.
Now, on to the other thing I want to talk about is the Pete and the not Pete, the Rami and the Pete. You know what I'm talking about. Here's my issue with it. Pete is his defining characteristic is being a laid back dude. So when you're doing an impression of Pete, for most people, adding a little intensity to your impression, would, is not such a big deal. Maybe it's not entirely accurate, but it adds some energy. But it directly goes against how I see Pete and his demeanor. This was like the most coked up, like somebody laced his joint, Pete Davidson I've ever seen, and he kind of came off more like Kyle Mooney's Baby Yoda than the real Pete. And if it wasn't for the good costume job and just the fact that they look alike, which is the reason they did the joke, I probably would have had trouble pointing that to be Pete in the first place. But hey, they didn't do it because he was going to do a good Pete impression. It was clearly just a circumstantial, hey, they look alike, let's address it. So I'm probably being a jerk to the guys just, trying to acknowledge something that people point out.
I don't think you're being a jerk. I think that
Okay.
that's fair. He was bringing a lot more hand gestures and energy than I've ever seen Pete Davidson have.
Yeah.
I understand why he did that. Like you said, you want to bring something, you want to bring a little intensity to an impression to, make it more of a caricature, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
when you're defining
that stood out to
characteristics,
me too, right?
yeah.
It's so funny because when I was watching it, I thought, wait, does Pete Davidson do that much with his hands? I guess he does. Like Rami Malek just gaslit me about what Pete Davidson is like. But you're totally right. It wasn't a great impression.
No.
But you're also right that that's not why we were here. So like, it's fair. Uh this one was okay. There was fun in parts of it, but overall maybe feeling a little bit more middle of the road on this one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these musical performances. Young Thug performs TikTok and More Than Anything, featuring Nate Ruess, Gunna, and Travis Barker. Steve, were you into Young Thug?
I was into the whole clan that showed up. Maybe a little bit too much because the first song, especially, I don't think I paid much attention to Young Thug. Uh, I really like Travis Barker as a drummer. Uh,
Same.
he's really flashy and he's pretty tight. And I grew up with Blink 182 and the blast beats. I wanted to be a big punk drummer. I
I
wanted,
wanted to be Travis Barker.
yeah. I'm sure you had some, side things going, maybe a top fro hop.
You know me.
But yeah, like the songs were great, and I think I think we already knew that Travis Barker was going to show up. And here's something I love about Travis is that he does things just for the flashiness of it. Like I'm sure you noticed, Catherine. You know, he'd hit two cymbals, and then he'd cross his arms, hit the same two cymbals. You don't need to do that.
The man puts on a show, and
Yeah,
that's what I love about him. But he puts on a show without sacrificing the technicality and the good drumming of it.
that's
And
right.
that's what I
Yeah.
always loved about him.
Yeah, no, it was like studio perfect drumming. You could lay that down as a track, but it was so fun to watch as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, usually you got to sacrifice one for the other, but he's been drumming for a long time.
No, so Travis was the draw here for me. I don't I don't know who Young Thug is, if I'm gonna be honest. But I heard Travis Barker was gonna be there. I was like, oh, that's something to look forward to. But then like in the mix, like he was laying down some great fills. I could see it with my eyes, but I couldn't hear them. Like it wasn't the age old complaint of SNL musical guests is they're just never quite mixed right. And so that was taken away from it. And I just couldn't get into it. I, and both of the songs were just sort of there for me. I didn't love either one, but I also am very, very well aware that I am not the target audience. So that's fine. I'm sure people who are Young Thug fans thought this was great. There's nothing wrong with it other than it just wasn't my thing. Madeline, did you enjoy these two performances?
I enjoyed Young Thug. I don't know much about him. I didn't know that was Travis Barker. I'm now way more interested in what was happening because of that. I definitely, that speaks to my more appreciation of rock music, pop punk music than
Mm-hmm.
maybe hip hop in the scheme of things. But one thing I really, really was digging was the color aesthetic. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was very cool how everything was red and Young Thug was pink. And that just stood out as a cool factor to me. I thought a lot of people probably like this guy because he seems so cool. But that was really, I don't know if I walked away with more than anything than that, but I did enjoy it.
Overall, though, Young Thug may be a little over our heads, but there were things to appreciate for sure. Let's talk about Weekend Update. For their lead in, Jost and Shay discuss the climate bill and Kyrie Irving. Steve, where'd you land on this outing?
I thought it was good. You know, uh, if I were a bet, I think I might feel a bit offended. Uh, but it's
Hashtag
funny
not
and
all
it's
bats.
provocative. Not all bets, exactly. It felt specious, if that's a word. I just felt this was a middle of the road, well executed weekend update. Che can be pretty fumbly at times, and I felt he was pretty rock solid. As funny as he can be, some of his weaker moments is getting through delivery of jokes, and yeah, I think he held that up pretty well. I like the some of the callbacks that were made to previous jokes, um, and yeah,
I I'll differ from you a little bit. I didn't think this was the best. I didn't think either of them seemed to be on their A game. And I mean, we've said a million times, even their not A game is not too shabby. But there was just a lot of stuff that I was laughing at. There was nothing that I cackled at, you know? And I will say it's hard for me to tell because at this point in the night, I've had a couple misses, right? As far as the sketches go. Like I didn't love the celebrity panel one. Young Thug wasn't really for me. And then we get to this and so it could just be a casualty of how I was feeling on the show as a whole, but it didn't feel like the strongest outing to me. Madeline, what did you think about Update?
I thought, as far as the jokes are concerned, this was the weakest weekend update in a long, long time, maybe in like well over a year. I was super disappointed. I don't think I liked any of the jokes. None of them hit right for me. I think it's possible that it wasn't the most funny news week ever. If I'm thinking on it, like to their credit, I don't think there was a ton of splashy stuff happening. It was a lot about bills and really sad Democrat stuff getting kicked out of the right. There just wasn't
Right.
a lot of like splashy news things to work with, but I
That's
just
fair.
thought that made them tip into kind of jokes you could make anytime that had no bite and were honestly a little offensive to me. I thought Michael Che's infertility joke was so lame. I thought the two Grand Canyons joke was really lame. I thought that's Indian food for you was, and I'm saying lame. I don't mean to say lame. I'm sorry. Was really unexciting and uninteresting. Really boring. I really, really disliked it.
Fair enough. I think that it's totally fair. I will say the one joke that I did really love was, and even the execution of it was not fantastic. I love more of the idea of Jost sort of firing back at Che, like mentioning his problematic emails because Che has the ongoing thing of like canceling Jost. So I like the idea of Jost sort of punching him back a little bit. But I mean, the way they did it, I don't think was the funniest joke they could have landed on it.
No, no. But like you
Thank you for the
said,
validation.
that's the bar is set. Like it doesn't get any lower than still pretty good. Uh, so yeah,
All right, but let's talk about these features. Those are always my favorite part of Update. Up first, Colin Jost outs a gay Oompa Loompa who just wanted to talk about workers' rights. Madeline, how'd you feel about this character?
Again, I'm not going to say anything bad about anything that Bowen does. I'm just not going to. I really enjoyed this performance. I loved the way he looked. I will say, I think this was a case of two unusual things. And if they had just picked one to focus on in the writing, it could have been way sharper. So instead, it was like a B minus for me instead of maybe an A or an A plus. But I wasn't sure if they were just going to make Oompa Loompa workers being oppressed jokes versus Colin outing the Oompa Loompa. I was having a hard time really nailing what the funny thing was there. But it was weird enough and strange enough, and Bowen was charismatic enough that I still had a great time during it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, Bowen's great. He sold it. I had fun with it. But I would actually say there's maybe even three unusual things because it was set up as proud gay Oompa Loompa, which I was really excited about. And then Bowen comes out. I'm like, what does a proud gay Oompa Loompa look like? And then he's immediately not a proud gay Oompa Loompa. So that was weird. But I was here for it. I was like, okay, so the thing's gonna be he got outed. That's fun. And then we have the workers' rights things. And I think all three of those options could be great, but picking multiple ones took each something away from each one of them. So exactly like you said, it could have been an A plus, but instead it was like a B plus.
this might mean
But
we just
Bowen's
haven't
always here.
seen anything but proud gay Oompa Loompas, and that's why
That's a
we're
good
yeah,
point.
Face reality, different than what we maybe were imagining. You're right.
yep. Maybe it was
That
Pride
is
Week when the children visited.
that was critically important. You're right. I'm wrong. Steve, where'd you land?
Yeah, you you're right about like I'm there with your confusion. It felt like it was setting up a hard premise to follow the entire time. Not unlike Lauren Holt's, probably her swan song, I guess, or her
Or like
big,
breakup character.
yeah, that was her big moment of her season, and that whole thing was, the circumstances changing at the last minute as she's coming on, which is a fun way to like introduce a guest because like you're in that frantic uh dealing with the situation along with them. But yes, that led me to believe that we're going to do a whole thing of Bowen dealing with this. And it started that way, and then it started to become more of some kind of uh, Steve Jobs disguised hit piece because he felt like he was, uh, making criticisms of Wonka uh, that would also pertain to Apple, and just that like that that visionary without the technical backup.
I
I,
had
I
so
loved
much
it.
fun with that beat. I loved that beat so
Yeah,
much.
well, I loved it because of how Bowen crafts these characters, where you get glimpses into like their personality, where they you could actually see that worker telling that story to like his boyfriend at home. Is like, oh, I had the worst day. My boss, had this stupid idea, and I said, yeah. What about it? Like, oh, it feels real.
Yeah, so Bowen always a win, but maybe less of a win than it could have been. I think that's what we're all saying here. Let's talk about Chris Red, here to talk about the news that people just don't talk about enough, but also the last time he was here. Steve, how'd you feel about this feature?
it felt like a nice massage for my neuroatypical brain. I was like, my lack of attention span is rarely catered to this much in my television viewing. This is all over the place. He's asking the real questions. Who's calling this stuff unimportant? It's all important. It's not. It's the important stuff of the important stuff. Blimps, yes, yes. Let's talk about blimps. Let's talk about everything. I don't even need an explanation as to why this piece is so unfocused. But let's go there because they did it. I like the fact that it became his way of diverting attention and avoiding talking about something uncomfortable. I like that, and I totally forgot about that moment in February of 2020. Sometimes you can miss those. They're some of the best lines, especially from Heidi Gardner. Some of those peace outlines while the audience is clapping over them. As easy as they are to miss, they're worth the second viewing or the rewinding to catch it.
Madeline, what'd you make of this one?
I was confused. I really loved the jokes about the blimp. That was great. I would have loved another topic that was something equally as obtuse and weird. I didn't understand why we were getting another Pornhub reference. That's when I started feeling like, oh, there's like a conspiracy going on here and I'm not informed. Is this Young Thug again? I don't know what this is. And SNL making me feel old. And then when they started talking about the thing that he'd said on the show, I couldn't let that go. I was so curious. And then when they played it, I don't know what. I just was pretty confused. And Steve, I watch every episode of SNL and I did not know that shouting things at the end was a thing. So I can't tell if Chris Red meant that or didn't. And then I've already missed so many references on this episode. I thought, is the internet mad about this? And I don't know. So I don't really feel like I can judge this one. I want Chris Red to succeed. I think he's super funny. I really like him. I liked the blimp stuff. I don't know.
Fair enough. I don't think that this is something people were outraged about. I think at least as far as I can tell in my corner of the world, this is something that just happened and I think he thought would be funny. Like, I can't believe I said that. Let's bring it back up as if it were a problem.
Yeah.
But maybe someone does think it's a problem. Who knows?
It's kind of a running joke that Chris Red gets left out of the news. So
that is true.
I'm surprised it's a thing if it is.
But like you said, Steve, this was just a little all over the place. And I like having Chris on to do a little stand up. I just don't know I don't know if this is the best way to frame all of these stand up pieces, or I have a hard time critiquing when they do stand up on the show because that's not my wheelhouse. But it felt a little jarring, all these cuts. So each part had something funny, but overall I was like, I'm not sure what this was,
My brain looking for a game just couldn't even understand them as separate things. I just thought I was totally missing something.
Okay, so that one a little bit jarring. We like Chris, but maybe not Chris's strongest performance. Let's get into Linus Minus. Hypnotizes an NBC security guard named Roy, causing multiple accidents. Steve, what'd you make of this one?
I thought this was I'm going to say this is classic comedy. This is just, you're in a situation. It's all going wrong and you try to fix it. Everything you do to fix it makes it worse in the most hilarious ways. I felt like I was watching Looney Tunes. This was just something that made SNL feel like old school variety show. And yeah, I as familiar as those beats are, and as many times as we've seen it, this is why this is timeless, classic comedy, because it's just it you feel it in your bones. It is visceral.
Interesting. Madeline, was it a win for you?
It was a huge win for me. I don't always go in for the Mikey Day stuff. I mean, it's a joke about pissing your pants, right? It's a piss your pants joke. And I didn't care. I really liked it. I liked the framing of Linus Minus. That was a little bit weird enough for me. I always love Keenan. If anyone other than Keenan had been doing this, I think I might have been like, "Wow, that's a Mikey Day thing. I'm grumpy." I think I might have been grumpy about it. But because it was Keenan and just how silly he was, why are my pants wet? I also really liked the Zendaya runner that
That was fun.
correcting Keenan for no reason on how to pronounce her name. I was thrilled by this. It was classic, Steve. You're right. It was just a clear game with really clear heightening, and it was surprising enough to make me laugh. I really liked this one.
Yes,
I
yes.
guess this is the moment where I learned that I hate comedy. No, I didn't hate it. But I didn't love it. I guess I took on Madeline your approach to some of the others of did I miss something? Is this a guy? Is this a real show? Because there's been like a few sort of like magic shows on Broadway, and I was like, is this like a take on that specifically? I felt like I had missed something. Um, and so the whole time I was wondering who Lioness Minus is basically.
I think every
that-
county just has one of these.
I did Google it as soon as Colin said it to confirm it wasn't a thing. So that's
That was
really
probably smart.
interesting because maybe that let me enjoy it. I don't know.
Maybe so. Because yeah, I just stayed confused, and then it relied so much on the performances, and of course it's Keenan. Of course the performance was great, but I don't know. I didn't feel like it really heightened. It to me it felt repetitive. So yeah, to be honest, I didn't love it, but maybe it's a me problem on this one. It's not an SNL problem. It's a I was too in my head about it. Because there was fun to be had here. I think at this point in the show, I was maybe feeling a little down. Again, if we're looking at the roller coaster from Young Thug, I'm feeling down. Oompa Loompa's okay. Didn't love Chris's thing. Now there's this. So it, again, could have been just a casualty of that. But yeah, not for me. But I'm so glad to hear that y'all loved it so much. Comedy. There's something for everybody.
Yes, I know you would fight for a right to enjoy this
I would.
sketch,
To my
even if it
dying
was
breath.
the worst thing you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're here, Catherine.
Okay, well, let's get out of update. Let's get into the back half of the show. Up first, this couple just wants the perfect Sleepytown USA mattress to have their arguments on. Madeline, was this one a win?
I loved this sketch so much. I think maybe we'll disagree again, and I'm excited to hear about it. But I loved Sleepytown USA. I could have seen this on stage at an underground comedy theater in New York or Chicago. It felt very theatery to me. So it was a little familiar, maybe a little well worn, almost in like, we're going to overact something. But the execution was so fun. And I thought the Sleepytown USA mattress setting made it just weird enough that I was really delighted by it. I liked Adi and Rami together. I thought whoever wrote this did an incredible job thinking about what Rami's strengths were and writing to Rami's strengths. I think he comes across as a little weird. And so him coming across as a little weird in this sketch was perfect. I also thought it was going to be about sex in that first beat, and then it wasn't. So that was a pleasant surprise for me. Bowen being the voice of reason character in a sketch was another great way for Bowen to show his versatility. I also was really surprised when the gun came out and then the second gun came out. I maybe shouldn't have been surprised about that, but I wasn't expecting it. So you saved me, but I'm so horny. He's dead in our bed from Sleepytown. Made me laugh out loud. I really, really enjoyed this one. It might be on the strength of A.D. Bryant, but I thought it was a real winner.
You've given me some more things to appreciate about it in that like you said, the writer did right to Rami's strengths. That's very smart. They performed the hell out of it. I love that Bowen got to he continually proves he's versatile, but gave us another thing to point to when people give us that argument that he plays the same character. Um, it ended up for me in a really fun, different place than I expected. Like you said, when the guns came out and then he's dead, but I'm horny. Fantastic. Loved it. With a lot of the stuff before that just felt really well worn. Like there's a Key and Peele sketch that's very similar. Um, but like, I don't know, it's really hard to fault them on that because maybe I just watch too much sketch comedy. Like, and so like they found fun new places to go with it, but I was feeling a little like, I've sort of seen this before, right?
But if you're gonna base it on I've seen this before, then
Right.
none of the sketches win. They
That's
all
true.
lose.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I get what you mean though. It does feel like, oh, they're being big. Okay, yeah, sure. But
Mhm. Yeah, I think I on many other nights, I think I would have unequivocally loved this. I think I would have quickly gotten over I've seen this before because I never played this role. I usually love I love or like everything, and I'm really nice and I'm very positive. And tonight, I don't know what. Maybe this is just how I was feeling last night. But yeah, there is. You make a good point there. I think a lot of other times I would have forgiven it for like being a premise I was familiar with. But tonight, since I was feeling down, I was like, nope, I'm gonna hold that against you. And that
I ain't got
maybe
no
not
time for
fair
you.
of me, that's fair. I'll take it. It did end in a great place. I did ultimately end up really liking it. So, Steve, where are you gonna land?
Here's something you might not know about me. I used to sell mattresses. I was a mattress salesman. So
I wish I would have asked you first.
I'm going into the sketch saying, all right, this ought to be good, you know. And I'll tell you something. One of the challenges of selling mattresses is getting someone comfortable enough to lie down on the bed. You know, they'll go around and like put their fists on it. It's like, is this soft? Is this hard? And you're like, do you sleep on your knuckles? Do you just like balance on one fist and you know hang out there like some Cirque du Soleil performer? No, you got to lie down. But that's the thing, right? You feel vulnerable doing that. It's like you're letting your guard down in public, and the only reason you're comfortable enough to lie down and go to sleep is because you're in the safety of your own home. And I feel like somebody tapped into that because like that glimpse into someone's personal life that could get so much worse. And like this is a reminder for anyone window or mattress shopping is like people knowing what position you sleep in ain't gonna be nothing compared to like what really goes on in married people's bedrooms. And you get a glimpse of that into selling mattresses because you'll say like, hey, if you get a king mattress, you know, if you're getting a fight, you got more room to separate yourself with, and you seem like that's a good idea. You're like, okay, so that appeals to you. That's you know, dinging some bells. Here's my point though, is that like the fact that they're testing the bed how it truly will be used, like that is, I think, a hilarious joke. And as niche as that might be, I think they might have wrote this for mattress salesmen.
I love that insider baseball on this sketch, Steve. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, I do that at the least expected times.
Truly.
I do think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you sleep 3/3 of your life was my favorite joke of the evening.
I missed
That
that.
was really fun.
I missed that. So like 100% of the time. You're
And
just
then
in a
Bowen
coma.
goes, that's not what I said. It was mwah.
I
Yeah,
missed
that
that.
was great. I maybe like on Wednesday I'm gonna rewatch this sketch and I'm going to love it. I think I'm apparently in a mood and I didn't know it.
Just get all of your pets and like just make a puddle and just get in the happiest place you've ever
Mhm.
been and then watch it. See how
Y'all have given me so much more to appreciate about it, and it is fun. So I want to give it another chance. I'm gonna give it a third watch. I'm gonna give it a few days to forget about it, and then I'm gonna watch it again, and I will post a little mini episode with my new take on it. Let's just call it a win. We're going to ignore me and we're going to move on to our 10 to 1 where Angelo, he just needs one word to improvise a beautiful song.
Say for me.
And Steve, I suspect you really, really like this.
Of course I did. Of course. Who out there in Twitter land or Facebook verse or whatever we call you internet people, who listened to me talk about this Aristotle guy the first time? Because I talked about this very stuff, and this is what got me jazzed about learning of this guy's hires, because he can put so much into a character with just like the flick of the wrist or how he holds a microphone. So much of this is just like understated, patient, well-timed nuance. And in a cast full of larger than life, loud people, as great of a talent as that is, your Cecilys, your Bowens, and the Hams, someone with this subtlety that can quietly get laughs. Some of the biggest laughs of the night. I don't know if he was so quiet I could hear the laughs better, but like, you know, the reserved, low energy performance and the fighting the urge, because when you're looking down, how hard must it be to like not look up and say, are people liking this? You know, are people laughing? Like just committing to that and not paying attention, but expecting people to pay attention to you is such a scary, courageous thing. And Aristotle has really just shed a lot of natural fear that so many people have and has made magic with it.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting to see Aristotle get his first big showcase. Madeline, was it a win for you?
I thought this was definitely the most exciting sketch of the night. It was the most unique, most original. This is exactly what you want in the 10 to 1 spot. It's always going to be my favorite sketch. Give me something weird. And Aristotle definitely delivered. I will say that I think I loved it on principle more than I actually found myself laughing at it. I wonder if it was again Daniel Craig being late and not getting to rehearse. I was also so distracted why Daniel Craig was in it and I was like, where is Rami? I want Rami to be in this weird thing, that I think I was a little distracted until Rami showed up. But just the idea of someone continually asking the audience for a question and misunderstanding and then singing the same thing is so funny. I almost feel like Daniel Craig ruined it. His voice of reason charactering was very poor. Or that took me out of it. But I thought it was really weird, fantastic.
How good would this have been with Beck Bennett still in the cast playing Greg's role? Because this was his brand of straight man. Like if you think of like Shrek Dad or the rider of the David S. Pumpkins ride, that's the reaction I want to this guy.
That is such a good point. I do think the voice of reason character just wasn't played by the right person. Yeah.
That's an excellent point, because he actually, and I didn't know this prior to watching it, but I have since learned, he did this character at his Just for Laughs showcase. And there in that version, like there is no voice of reason. He's just genuinely asking the crowd, and then he does his thing. And I thought that version was a lot funnier. So I think maybe Daniel Craig was the thing that took me out of this a little bit, because I didn't love the SNL version of it.
Yes, Catherine. Yes. Because I was thinking, this character speaks for itself so much, you don't need anything. You don't need an introduction or an explanation. Just let him do that. And if he got out into the audience and did like some Nick the Loud Singer thing with this,
yeah, I hate to say it because Aristotle was great and I was so happy to see him, but yeah, I was not loving it. But then I saw the internet adored it and just loved it, and I was like, maybe this is a me thing again. And then I watched that version just for laughs, and I was like, okay, well, I like this version, but I couldn't put my finger exactly on why. So thank you both for helping me figure that out. The things I did love about it obviously are Aristotle. And I love the meme ability of like the "say for me" line. I love that's just a gif I can use over and over again. Like that's just such a fun quotable line that those are always great to find in, live. You're like, "Oh, I'm here in the moment when this thing that will be a meme soon happened." And yeah, I always want to see the featured player hit a home run, and I'm very happy to see that at large he did. People really, really loved this, even if it wasn't my favorite. Okay, well, that is the end of our rundown. Let's get into our overall thoughts and ratings. Moment of the night. Madeline, what was it?
I think the moment of the night was the first time Bowen broke out into the spider dance. In the first sketch, it was just exciting, a great way to start off the night. That was it for me.
Fair enough. I'm gonna give it to the Pete Rami switch up. So I mean, I realized we went to it a few times, but the first time when I realized that's what they were doing, because that's a big thing. I went into the episode wanting to see, and so to see how they were going to do it, and that they were definitely going to do it, they were going to play each other. That was just really fun. That was a good moment. Steve, what's yours?
Mine is Keenan taking a sharp point of a paper airplane to the temple, and you know, like Gilda Radner breaking a rib, just powered through it because that looked like it hurt. Can we just? Do you agree with me
It
that
came with
that
some
looked a little
force.
hard,
Mhm.
a little direct? That he felt that, and I just knew. I knew that was Kristen again. Uh, I knew that was their way of going back to that impression. I don't know why. It's just, uh, it's part of that manic pixie girl energy that Melissa taps into. Just
Yeah,
to
I
goes to
love
show.
that he immediately knew it was Kristen. Like that's such a fun thing for like the character that is Kristen Wiig.
Right. I love it.
Okay, well let's talk about our best sketch. Madeline, what was yours?
Sleepy Town. I loved Sleepy Town. I love A.D. Bryant. I liked the big acting. I liked that it used the host well. I liked that there were enough weird jokes for me to sell it. Oh, I loved Get Your Killing Gun. I didn't say that before. I liked that sketch a lot.
One more reason for me to give it a third watch. For me, far and away, the best sketch was Daddy Longlegs. That was just so delightfully fun. I thought that was the best showcase of Bowen of a night when he got used quite a bit. I thought that was the highlight. It just so many jokes. And I was surprised by it because, like I said, when it started, I was unsure, but then they fully sold me, and I loved it. That's my best. Steve, what's yours?
Uh, I'll give it to Angelo because I felt like it was a breakout for Aristotle Atari, and I genuinely laughed the hardest at this.
Yeah, it's always a good move, to give your best sketch to the one that had the featured player in it, because we do love to see it. It's like, in addition to being funny, it feels so heartwarming as a fan of the show, right? So you get it's exciting to see it no matter what it actually turns out to be. Let's talk about our MVP. Who's it going to, Madeline?
I think I have to give it to Bowen. I mean, it seems pretty clear to me. You could give it to Keenan, I think, but it's always Keenan. I think Bowen really deserves it tonight. He had a great, great big character. He had a really good George Takei impression, and he played that great voice of reason character. I'm giving it to Bowen.
Well, I'm gonna give it to Daniel Craig. No. I literally had written down Bowen, case could be made for Keenan. So exactly what Madeline just said. And you could also make a case for Aristotle. He had his big moment, and that's great to see. But yeah, Bowen was all over the place. And like I said, I loved the Daddy Longlegs sketch. No other person could have played that like Bowen did. And Bowen's always a win. Steve, who's your MVP?
Uh, Gonna give it to old Double A. I think he's made the triple A's with this. He's broken out now. This is it. And Catherine Madeline, you guys talked about the ones who deserve that title for doing the heavy lifting. Obviously, Bowen was going for the Bowen Yang show, basically, and Keenan just has uh, that frequent presence he usually does because it's Keenan. We're used to that.
Keenan was everywhere. Keenan will
Yes.
be Keenan.
I want to give it to Aristotle because, it is his breakout performance, and I think that deserves recognition, even if it was only really the one thing he's shown in. The one thing we got to make sure of is that he can bring stuff to this show that he hasn't already worked on. This is a show that is ever churning and ever refreshing. If he needs more time than what the show will allow him to come up with new material, it might be an issue. So it remains to be seen what he can bring that's new, what he creates for the show. But
Yeah,
he deserves it just for showing his talent.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, in this is the 3rd episode and we really haven't seen much of him. So it was refreshing to for him to get that showcase and for him to perform it so well. It definitely gave me where I was feeling a little nervous for him, maybe a little prematurely, but uh this was a nice vote of confidence where I was like, "Oh, okay. Like he is really good. He can perform this. He can hold his own in a sketch." That was great. Let's talk about the big one. On a scale of classic, great, decent, weak, or train wreck, Madeline, how would you rate this episode?
I'm going to go decent. I'm going to go decent. I want to say maybe a little bit better, but it's really just decent for me.
Fair enough. I'm going to agree. I'm going to put it at decent. There's once again the argument to be made. If I was maybe in a better mood, it could have been great. But I think even if I take away my hang up on Sleepy Town and admit that I loved that sketch, I think there were still a few things at the top that weren't quite it for me, and then in Weekend Update as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think a decent is a very fair place to put it. Steve, where are you gonna land?
We're going to release this episode in 3D because it is decent for me too. Across the board, I feel like this was pretty okay writing, pretty okay uh, putting together of a show. The host could be less awkward. I feel like he wasn't bad. Like it wasn't like Adrian Brody bad, but there was definitely some, hey, I'm not used to this. This is not my normal job vibes going on. And yeah, that's charming to an extent. And then there are moments where it's a little bit awkward. Like, when you forget that you're supposed to go into a rap after you say you've got panache or whatever the line was.
Well, to be fair, that could have been his twin that wasn't at rehearsal.
Ah, yes.
I thought something went wrong there.
I think that maybe a line had been cut or something and he got confused.
Yeah. There was probably supposed to be something that
it
teed
seemed
him
like
up
Keenan
for
was
it.
supposed to have something, yeah.
Yeah. And then they were like, you're just going to go straight into it. And then he forgot that direction. Or maybe I'd say some of these things get missed, like in communication, I'd say, because it changes so much.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
They do so much of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think decent is the way to go.
Fair enough. A decent episode with some high highs and some more middle of the road stuff, but definitely some winners in here. I'm so glad that we all enjoyed it. Madeline, I'm so glad that you were on the show. You were great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun. I love talking about SNL.
It was great having you, Madeline.
Come back anytime. This was great. And where can people find you? What are you up to now?
I am on Twitter at Madeline Baldanzi, and I do a lot of writing that maybe one day people will see, but it's all slow to come out. But if you want to learn how to write a pilot or have a sample to give to agents or managers, you want to up your stakes in this Hollywood game, you can take my pilot class. I offer an 8-week pilot class, and you can check out my website, MadelineBaldanzi.com, if you want to learn how to write a story for me.
Yay. And I cannot recommend enough Madeline as a teacher. She is Wonderful. She's great. If you think I've ever sounded like I know what I'm talking about, it's thanks to Madeline. So
You always sound like you know what you're talking about because you do know.
because you taught me.
No.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to sign off without Steve. I don't know where he went. That is a wrap. Thanks to Steve Finn and Madeline Baldanzi. And thanks as well to our most generous patrons, Sam Bowers, Neil Weinstein, Justin Gardner, Grace Kogan, and Brian Clark. If you're enjoying our show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever better podcasts can be found. Your subscription helps us grow, and your support is greatly appreciated. We'll be back in 1 week when SNL returns with host Jason Sudeikis and musical guest Brandi Carlile. But until then, this has been episode number 144 of the Saturday Night Live Afterparty podcast. I'm Catherine Coleman. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.